Flipping it up and out. Bogues! A recent block by Bogut.
Good recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get rogue.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, the basketball series. Myself and my good friend Mike Procopio. What is news from the US, Pro?
Well, Bogues, I'll fucking tell you what's going on in the United States. So I'm fucking taking a nap yesterday, and I get a call from one Jacques Lawndale, and he fucking calls me, and I let the thing go to voicemail, and I'm like, I'll give him a call like an hour. So I called.
Damn, you big time him.
No, I was like dozing off. I'm like in the middle of a nap. My kid's not sleeping, so I'm up half the night with him. And so I'm like, I'll call him back. Call him back, nothing. He calls me back with like the half ring deal. And I fucking call him back, nothing. No call today. So, I'm trying to think of what that conversation will be like, what he's asking. We have a good dialogue. Here's what it probably is. It's probably like, it's like, bro, I got all these people around me with flames on their shirt trying to like actually give me instructions. I'd be like, Lawndale, those are actual assistant coaches that want to work with you. And you'd be like, wait a minute. I got this weird guy dribbling on my socks. I'm like, yeah, this team actually thinks of you as a fucking NBA player. They don't give you their G League shit in the first day. They actually give you the NBA shit. And it's an 82 game schedule, not a 50 fucking game schedule. He's a little bit, he's probably a little weird that actually people actually want to work with him. And he's not going to be, he doesn't have to get fucking guides of what to eat in Austin, fucking Texas, or Portland, Maine. He'll actually be with the big club. So he's probably failing a little bit. The fucking equipment guy doesn't work him out. He actually has real assistant coaches working with him. So I think he's just trying to.
Bro, are you saying the Spurs? Are you questioning the Spurs development?
No.
Is that what you're doing?
I would never do that. But he's probably a little confused. He's probably just a little confused on that. So I would have given him as much advice as I could on it. Be like, hey, look, you don't have to carry your own shit. NBA schedule. You play in arenas, not junior colleges. Like, this is actually big shit. And, you don't have to like bring your suit to trips. You actually bring your jersey to trips, and they're actually going to play you. So it's good for him. But the fucker didn't answer me back. And it's funny. I was on my walk tonight and thinking of what I'm going to say to fucking blast this guy. I kid you not. 2 seconds after I fucking think of what I'm going to say, this fucker texts me and he's like, oh, sorry, man, I couldn't get back to you. I forgot what he said he was at. I said, dude, I'm just going to just be warned. You're going to get fucking blasted in the first minute and a half. He goes, you fucking two fucking assholes. I said, no. Bogues knows nothing about it. I said, this is going to be true rogueness. I'm not even going to tell him until we fucking put the show on. So that fucker better answer his phone. If he's going to call me, I mean, what the fuck? I didn't call him.
He might be at a winery. He might be at a winery with a wifey posting on Instagram. That's his go-to. I give him shit about.
Oh, that's how cute.
We love you, Jock, but there's a lot of those romantic photos going around. That they did get engaged, Pro.
Good for them.
So we wish them all the best. The wedding's coming up, so that the old young couple in love. It feels like a long time for both of us, but we're hoping Jock gets some minutes, man. I think on that, looking at that roster, I mean, he could, if he shoots the three ball well, there's some minutes there for the taking at the 4-5 spot, I believe. So. Yeah. Hope he gets a bit of run playing with Chris Paul and those guys. So we'll see how it goes. Let's get rolling into the run sheet. Some big news that broke during the week, I guess, for the off-season, other than trades and all that, was an in-season tournament, Pro. NBA in-season tournament for 2023-24, so not this coming season. It'll be the season after. There's not a real exact breakdown of how it works yet. All we know is cup games will go through November. 8 teams advance to a single elimination finals.
Right.
And the other 2 continue as per normal in the regular season. So all the games in November that count towards this tournament are regular season games too. So they count as regular season games. It's a normal 82-game schedule. I guess the November portion of that 82-game schedule counts. You must get separate points, I assume, that then go into a cup. 8 teams advance to single elimination. Your games in the tournament count to standings as well for the regular NBA season. Besides one game, there's one extra game for the 2 teams that make the finals. I think that game does not matter for the regular season, and that gets you the number 1 or you're the championship for the tournament. You're the winner of the tournament. Prizes to be determined. I assume there's going to be prize money involved or some incentive or whatever. And It's a weird one, Pro. We know the plane has been a success for him, I believe. Most people would agree with that. I think it's created a bit more hype leading into the playoffs. It gives teams a chance that probably usually wouldn't be there, a chance to now compete. And it stops blatant tanking for a 9-10 seed. Or maybe even an 11-12 wouldn't tank as blatantly because we might scrape into a playing game. So I think it's definitely solved some problems there for the NBA they had with blatant tanking. So I like that. This one I'm not sure about. I mean, are you trying to be UEFA Champions League? Is that what you're looking at? We need more. I don't know. It seems like a hollow tournament to me. I'd be interested to see how it goes, but I'm not a fan of this as it reads right now. I will give it a chance like anything and then tell you whether I like it or not. It might take 4 or 5 years for it to get its legs, but what are your thoughts about it, and do you think this is something that will be there for good?
Bogues, I thought going into it, I didn't really know how it was going to be formatted. So I'm like, extra games, this is probably not going to work. It's probably not going to be a good look. The WNBA does something very similar to it. They have cup games throughout the early season, and then they have a championship for just the top 2 seeded teams, record-wise. So I forgot how many teams they actually let in these cup games, but they just schedule them regular season just like they were, and the NBA seems like it's adopting this method as well. I was thinking about like the Copa del Rey, ACB, they do the same thing. Italy does the same thing. In the middle of the year, they have like 8 teams playing it or 16 teams playing it. I forgot the format. With this, yeah, I mean, for players, I don't think they're going to be all that more excited to play in it. I think they're going to be geared more towards the playoffs. Maybe teams that aren't in it, aren't in the championship hunt, a little bit of prize money will be okay. I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm not totally against it. I was reading something Mark Cuban said, his comments about have it where the champion of the league, of the cup games, expand the draft to 4 rounds, and then have the champion have the first pick in the 3rd and 4th round or something like that. I mean, maybe that could be played with a little bit. It's actually a decent idea. I'm a big fan of expanding the draft so you could expand the players that you have rights to. But I'm not really excited about it, to be honest. I don't think that, I think maybe if you were giving teams like $8 million a player or $5 million a player, which is, ridiculous. But I'm saying that's the only way they're going to be super hyped about playing in it. And I like the fact that they don't really have to add that many more games to it. It's just their regular season games that are counting towards.
Well, it's just one extra game with the finals. Yeah, so it kind of, that's why it's so hollow. It's not, they lose if they have extra games because people are going to complain. And then you got people like us, or at least me, saying, well, it's just regular season games. They're just tallying separate points for, and what's the point? Mark Cuban also did say, Pro, and I quote, you can say, I can see the Mavs not participating or even resting our best players in those games. Now, I think those comments were before the format was broken.
I think he said it was an old comment. I think I read that he said it was an old comment. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that now that they are actual regular season games, you're going to want to compete. So look, I think it's just a bit of extra sauce. They're trying to figure things out. I'm not strongly for or against. I just don't understand why. I think America's a different market. You mentioned Copa del Rey, soccer, UEFA Champions League. They're not playing 82 fucking games a year plus playoffs. That's the difference, right?
Yeah, and those fans, NBA fans, aren't even close to that level of fan. Those guys bleed it. NBA fans don't really bleed it. Let's be honest, right? Nothing against them, but certain people I guess do. But I think that, like you said, they don't play 82 games. They don't have the fanfare and those teams that play in those cup games for, I don't know anything about soccer, so I won't speak on it. Basketball wise, though, those people bleed for that. If they're not going to win the ACB championship, they're going to bleed for that Copa del Rey, right? I don't think NBA players aren't going to bleed for it, and I don't think the fans are going to care. So
no way.
Yeah. So look, how, Adam Silver is. He's trying to come up with new things constantly to try to revitalize the league. Look at Major League Baseball. I mean, Major League Baseball is dead, right? Their rankings, their ratings are going through to the cellar. They get 1/5 of the people watching that watched 10 years ago. So I think he's just trying to keep it fresh, but I really like the plan, which I didn't like at first. I really do like the plan, like you said, about, less teams tanking, teams really trying to play in for that spot. But I'm not a big fan of this. I could take it or leave it, but yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I think the European Cups too, there's tradition in those as well. It obviously gives these small market teams that don't have big budgets a chance to compete because it's a one-off game. Maybe the big dogs aren't valuing it as much because they're valuing the regular season trophy. So there's a lot of that. I mean, in soccer, it's awesome. I love League Cups in soccer, like the English Premier League, where you've got Premier League, League One, League Two, League Three, they're all in the cup. So sometimes you have like a Division 3 team playing against Manchester United, right? I like that, David versus Goliath story. So that's really cool. But this one, it's much of a muchness to me. I just don't understand it too much. We're told the NBA is doing really well, pro. So to your point about they're trying new things to keep people engaged, well, we're being told they're engaged, bro. The TV numbers and all that's supposed to be perfect. So it will be interesting to see how this goes and if it's something they continue to do, how the players buy into it. Like I said, they're still regular season games, so you still need to take them seriously. So I like that they haven't. I think if they would have made a separate tournament, it would have been a shit show. You would have had G League Ignite teams showing up. And do you really want your star, Luka Doncic or a Giannis or an Embiid, getting hurt in one of these games and then not being able to win a championship? Of course not. So I like that they've kept them. A positive for it is that it keeps in a regular season game, but we shall see. We shall see how it all works out, and whether there's a big prize to winning that trophy. I saw Mark Cuban saying that, or he also said that I take the tournament seriously if I got one of these behind me, which was the Larry O'Brien trophy.
Sure.
It's a fair point, right? Because that's what you play for, and we've been kind of trained that that's what you play for. You play for that in June. You don't play for some bullshit tournament in November. So I'm interested to see how they market that. But good luck to the NBA trying something new. Worldwide West. Did you see his comments?
No.
around dealing with the. Worldwide, where's that? Dealing with the Utah Jazz. He's obviously an executive with the New York Knicks. He said, the Jazz wanted my wife, my kids, and my grandkids. They were just trying to rip somebody off.
Yeah.
If I'm the owner of the Utah Jazz, I give Danny Ainge a bonus based on that quote because that's exactly what he's supposed to do. If you're a GM, you want every team in the league to feel that, and they've completed the trade now, so it doesn't matter. But you want what's best for your team. You want to fleece. It's poker, right? Like it's chess. I'm trying to screw you. You're trying to screw me. Give me an extra pick. Oh no, I want to protect it. Oh no, I want this guy. I'm going to throw in this bad. That's the art of war, the art of negotiation. So I think that's actually a compliment to Danny Ainge more than a negative, in my opinion, pro. And you're a big advocate of the way Ainge handles himself in trade talks and free agency and all that kind of stuff. He's one of the best in the business.
Bogues, dealing with Danny, working with him was so fun for the years that I was. And just seeing him work, I didn't really see a lot of these calls. Like I said, he negotiated the Antoine Walker trade to Dallas in Jack Black movie in Times Square. We went to see School of Rock, and he's talking to Donnie Nelson, talking about picks and things like that. But just listening to him operate, he never backs down. He's going to get what he's going to get, or he's not going to make a trade. You got a lot of GMs that just want to make a trade. So, a lot of times maybe they'll ask for a lot and then come to the middle. He almost never comes to the middle as far as on any trade. And like you said, it's a compliment to him. He wasn't going to back down. If you want this guy, this is what it's going to cost. And, that's what his baseline was of getting the kid. And, the Knicks, the report of what they asked for, New York was ridiculous, and he didn't back down, and he waited to deal in Cleveland. It was, I would give him 5 more years in his contract just for that, just to make him that move. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we all know Worldwide West is probably a pretty good negotiator when he wasn't in a front office, so he's probably been through the similar type things sitting courtside there. J.R. Smith, pro, believes that he, Joe Johnson and Jamal Crawford have been blackballed from the NBA. He's quoted as saying, give me 4 to 15 on any roster in the NBA. Name one of them that's better than me, pro. What are your thoughts? You think he's really blackballed? I don't. I think Joe Johnson's old. Jamal Crawford's an ISO guy that's older. And the league, J.R. Smith can still play. I agree, but sometimes it's just like a situation. It's a roster spot. It's salary cap. It's how many teams are going full rebuild young. Cross them off your list. They're not signing you. It just sometimes comes down to that. And excuse me, we were also seeing, we touched on this a couple of podcasts ago, where the vet min role player that's 11, 12, 13 is not an emphasis anymore for many teams. Udonis Haslam's one, but when I first came in the league, every team had their 13, 14, 15 was a vet min guy. Or maybe some teams had two, whereas now you're lucky to find one. So it has changed there, and I don't think J.R. Smith would be in that category though, because he does have his issues with certain things. But as far as Blackboard Pro, probably a little bit too much, right?
Yeah, these things never end well. Careers for the most part don't end well. And I'd say maybe 2% of the players that ever play any sport gets to leave on their own terms. And I think that JR just can't come to the realization that people are moving on and they don't want to go older player anymore. And maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago that they were all for it. Now these owners, they don't want to they don't want to do that anymore. They don't want to stunt the growth of a young kid, a young player, to have all these older players. Maybe at the deadline, if you're a team that's wavering, like a Rajon Rondo, right? LaMarcus Aldridge. Maybe in December or January, I want to, I have a real chance for the championship, but I really need that veteran, backup stretch four, or I need that point guard. I'll go to those guys. But there aren't many that I'll go to, and I may not go to them anyway. But these guys is just, look, almost every player that ever plays this game is going to get forgotten within 5 or 6 years of their career. Probably way less than that. And they just don't want to come to that realization. There's 5 stages of it. Who's JR? Keep an eye on JR. Get me JR type. Who's JR? And that's the thing. And it's sad. Because all those guys could probably help a team here and there if they were given minutes. But why would you want to give minutes to them when you have these younger players that might have a chance to have good NBA careers if they get minutes? Because again, NBA minutes are what develops NBA players, not just working out and doing all the stuff. So I wouldn't want to stunt the growth unless it was a special situation. If I'm Dallas and I really need a backup point guard, and it's December, but I need that backup to take the ball out of Luka's hands a little bit and just sort of run that second unit, I might give Rajon a call. If I need a help on the stretch four, Marcus, yeah, for sure. But those other guys, probably not. And it's anything to do with nothing against those guys, but it's just the NBA's changed. It's a young man's league. They flush you out a lot earlier. There are only so many Udonis Haslams out there. Miami really values them. They're an organization that values older players. Oklahoma City did that with Nick Collison. They're doing that with Mike Muscala now, if you notice. They want to keep guys around.
And see, I think that's smart, bro. I think that, I wouldn't look at J.R. Smith as that guy. I'm just going to put that out there as that veteran leader who's going to be happy with no minutes. But I've thought about this for, a couple of months now, that we have seen a decline in vet min guys. I think there's a lot of teams that could use them. I honestly do, because there's a lot of young teams that don't know whether they're coming or going. You look at someone like OKC, do you then have a group of young guys that, obviously they've gone through tanking years, they're young. Oh, we're not going to be any good. It's okay if we lose for a couple of years. And that gets ingrained in you as a young player sometimes. We don't have to value every night. We don't have to value wins or losses. That's where a vet can be like, hey guys, I know we're young, but we're, okay, we're not predicted to win many games, but we're bullshitting today. We're losing this game, but we're bullshitting, right? And I think that there's still a value there, and there's not many teams that see that. Like a Memphis, for instance, they could do with an old head on that team, in my opinion, right? I think a la Andre Iguodala or a la someone like that, back from 3-4 years ago when the Warriors got him back, or a couple of years ago when they got him back, but when they brought him in the first time in 2014, 13-14 season, guys like that, I think, have a value. And if they can give you minutes, great. But I think one out of those last 3 roster spots to 15 should be used for a bet min for most teams. Now, if you have a strong-minded system like Miami, you probably don't, they've got probably the most professional system and most Army-like system off the floor, and they still have one pro. They still have a vet min guy on there that's sparking orders and kind of the voice of the coach trickles down to the players. There's a lot of Sacramento's the other one I look at. Like, it wouldn't hurt you to get a vet min guy there for 2 or 3 years that can, bring some professionalism on a daily level, right? That it's just been interesting. I know you as a development coach probably more pro develop the young guy, but I think as far as team harmony, team culture, making sure things are professional, you're not going to get that many times from a young guy, right? They're trying to find their way, they're trying to find their legs, especially a 15 guy, 13, 14, 15 guy on the roster. He's just trying to do anything he can to get in that 12 and not be in a suit, right? Jock Landale-esque. So it's interesting. It's just an interesting topic to see a lot of teams moving away from it. And then it doesn't surprise me that some of these teams end up with culture issues, will end up with 3 guys fighting for the limelight or whatever it is, right?
And what's dying a slow death, Bogues, is the amount of actual leaders in NBA veterans. You don't really have that leadership in a lot of these guys anymore like you used to. When I was in Dallas, we had JJ Barea. He was probably the closest one that I've seen. But a lot of these vets, too, they're just sort of taking the young guy stance of just like taking care of themselves. They're not really taking guys under their wing. I remember reading about Kevin Garnett, and having Sam Mitchell take him under his wing. I remember Kobe telling me that Derek Harper did it for him, where he took him under his wing and sort of told him about how the league runs and, playing with him this first year. And you don't really have a lot of that going on. I think there's a few of these guys that do that. But I think leadership is a big issue today. I don't think we have enough of it. That's a fair point,
actually. Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think players... I think, I remember being in Boston, right? We had 2 leaders in the team. We had Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker. Antoine Walker, you couldn't shut him up. He's talking to everybody, talking shit, playing, getting in people's faces. That's how he led. He led that's the type of a leadership that he thought what leadership was. And then Paul Pierce never did that. Maybe later in his career he did. But they were both young, about the same age, give or take. And Paul would just get his work in, and he wouldn't do speeches. He wouldn't get in people's faces. He wouldn't do that. Dirk Nowitzki was a guy who just gets his work in. He never really did the whole, getting people together and talking. And I think there are different leadership styles. But today's player, I don't see a lot of that, to be honest with you. I don't see the Nick Collisons there anymore. I do see a few, don't get me wrong, there are a few good ones, but I don't see that leadership. I think, guys, it's a very selfish world we're living in, not only society-wise, but basketball-wise. And people just want to take care of themselves. Not everybody, but I would say it's dramatically shrunk the talent pool of these vets that I would want around my young players that would actually try to teach them the right ways to do things.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, I've mentioned this guy before, Irvin Johnson, not Magic, the other Irvin Johnson. He was my vet guy. They really tried to help me out, and I'll give you some examples of things he did. So whenever we went on the road, he would sit behind me on the bus as we land at the airport, we get on the bus and go to the hotel. He would sit behind me and go through all of my matchups without a sheet, because he's been in the league 15 years. So he's like, I remember going to Minnesota, he's like, what do you have for me on Oliver Candy? I said, kind of more relies on athleticism, decent touch, left shoulder, blah, 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 blah. Yep, and you're missing this, and you miss, if you drive to the bucket, get in his chest because he's a great shot blocker, blah, blah, blah. Then he'd go, okay, if you get cross-matched on KG, what do you got? And then their backup is this guy. And he would just, sometimes he'd be like, fuck, like you knew it was coming every bus trip on the road, right? And he would sit right behind me in the bus and just, grill me for 5 or 10 minutes about personnel, even though I have my scouting report, even though I'm supposed to read it myself, but he'd reiterate it. And he was training me to, hey, make sure tendencies going into a game. He also took me, this goes, you've got guys that are loud, guys that aren't. This doesn't even matter. This is off-court shit, right? This can be a quiet conversation. He took me out and bought me my first suit, right? Like it's stuff like that. I remember wearing a suit once and I don't know, the cufflinks weren't on right, pulls you aside, hey man, like let me fix those for you. It was like a father figure, right? So yeah, you're probably right. There's not a lot of guys left like that. And that's the value of a good guy, a good culture guy, a guy that, this kid's just come from college, doesn't even know how to, dress himself properly. I'm going to help him out. Instead of laughing at him, I'm going to help him, or I'm going to take him out and buy him this, or I'm going to take him out and buy him a meal and ask him, and that was invaluable to me. I still remember that to this day. And there's a lot of guys that were doing that back in the day. And I think it has faded out a little bit because it's like, it's become, it always kind of has been, but even more a me league. Oh shit, I've only got 1 year left. I need to try and get another vitamin deal out, or I need to get another 3-year deal. And guys aren't really thinking about that young guy. It's more like he's here to take my spot. Fuck him. Where I think the guys that do it, the Collisons of the world, or the Irvin Johnsons of the world, where people think, how does he get a roster spot? Udonis Haslem, like he's not there for his basketball. Like if you're relying on him to give you valuable minutes to win a game, you're in some fucking trouble. But he's there for a reason. He's there. He needs to be respected on a daily basis. If you got guys pouting and Spo goes off at a guy, or Pat Riley's not happy with the guy, and you think you got a shoulder to lean on with Udonis as your vet, and he's going to say, no, they're fucking right, man. That's a whole lot more worth and currency than a coach or a GM saying it. So I think it's a fair point, bro. We're probably going to start a vet school of a cultural school for vets to get an extra few years from just being good guys, instead of thinking that J.R. Smith school of like, I can still get 20. Why am I not getting a roster spot? It's like, you probably can, but is that detrimental to our young guys and our development? Are you a good guy in the locker room?
Yeah, and that's something that like vets should be thinking about when they get to 29, 30 is, okay, let me start talking to more people. Let me start taking more of a leadership role. Let me start taking more young guys under my belt. Let's do that. I remember Rondo telling me when he left Dallas and went, Sacramento, Chicago, and his other spots, he would take all the young guys and watch film with them. And show him what he sees, which is invaluable, obviously, how to read pick and rolls and things. But I think players, when they start getting, this could even be for overseas players, when you start getting older and that, I only get a few years left. If you want to hang around the game, start taking that leadership role. Don't just think, all right, well, I could score 20, dude. That's not what they really want out of you. Maybe they want that out of you twice a year. But they want somebody they could trust in that locker room. They want somebody that, that's going to just take those players and show them the ropes, show them how to be pros. And then, that's going to work in your favor exponentially, once your career's over. Because now, like Nick Collison's way up in the front office. Haslam's way up in the front office, and they value that. And I think that you could continue to do that. And, look, they want ex-players in this league. They want ex-players to be GMs, to be, head coaches, to be front office figures. They want in those developmental roles. They don't want non-developmental players in those. I mean, non-NBA players to fill those roles if they can do without it. So I think it really helps you in your value as a player to be able to start doing that and start looking at a broader picture versus, all right, how am I going to get my 20 tonight when I'm 33, 34, when I can't do that anymore, to that level.
This translates into not only other sports, but other industries to an extent. Like it translates to business. Like if you're that old dog that, you're kind of phasing out and the young, these young go-getters have come up, a lot of times people look at that as a threat, but if you're still valuable to your company about helping them, yeah, there is the odd company that you'll develop someone and they're going to take your job, but that's just the way of the world, right? In sport, it's much more brutal, but this translates to, for all the listeners, your business, your small business, whether you're working, you always try to help someone below you and help them. Most people will remember that. There will be a few circumstances where they cut your Achilles and take your spot, but that's the world you live in. But you still got to do. I think it's kind of an unwritten rule, at least in professional sports, that once you get to year 10, 11, 12, you should be trying to help. Even small things like you see, there's. I know Draymond spoke about it a lot with me about how I taught him to guard the post. I didn't really teach him how to guard the post. I was like, hey man, let me show you. I saw him guarding post players in a scrimmage. when we were playing, when I was in Golden State. And at the end of the session, he was struggling a little bit, that one. I took him aside and said, hey man, like, you can get away with these arm bars. You can do this. The referees don't usually emphasize this. You can give them a little shove here and affect their shot. All these little things. And he's like, oh shit, man. Like, I didn't know I could do that. Because he came from college, you know, he was trying to chess people and like you can't do that in the NBA. You're allowed to use arm bars. So I spent maybe 5 minutes and he still talks about it to this day, about how he remembers that and it was valuable to his development because someone pulled him aside. So it doesn't always need to be an hour or 2 hours or every other day. It's little things along the way. But we do have guys today that would see a guy like that not doing it right and getting killed and being like, oh, that's good for me because I'm going to get his minutes, you know? And it's like, well, are you really though? Like, yeah, maybe for half a season, then you're out of there. But if the club sees you developing guys and helping, it makes a big difference. So I think it's an interesting conversation. I love, you know, picking people's brains about it just because there is that, you know, do we stay young and develop young? And there's a risk there as well with not having veterans in the locker room, as we discussed. And then on the flip side, it's like, do we have a couple of veterans and then that hinders our young guys? So it is a bit of a gamble for NBA teams, but that's what they're going through. Speaking of which, Andre Iguodala has yet to announce his retirement. I was just texting with him actually 5 minutes ago and just trying to get him to give me an answer. He's announcing it via his podcast, I love it. It's similar to what I did. I gave him shit. I called him LeBron Iguodala via text message. I said, what is this decision bullshit? And he's like, man. So I guess he's weighing up the pros, cons of his body and whether he can get through another full season. We all get to this phase in our careers, or at least the smarter players do, whether you know, that 1 year extra towards the end could ramp up your body to be hurting 5 years earlier, right? That's the thing you have to think about. And he's at that point now. So I'm interested to see what decision he makes. I know that's another guy we speak of with the veteran thing that they'd love to have him back, even though they probably don't need him as much on that team as far as a veteran leadership, because I think they've got enough vets now on that team. But I think they like him because he pulls young guys aside and holds them accountable, even guys that aren't playing. I remember he used to get mad at you know, we'd be up 30 and our bench would get cleared, even with 4 minutes left, and then they'd be bullshitting. He would, oh my God, he would light them up. He would light them up like something stupid. Like in the locker room, you know, we're still in by 27, and then they're kind of like, whoa, it was only a 3 point, you know, we lost 3 points, big deal. And he was just losing his shit because he's like, you guys aren't playing the right way. I'm going to tell coach not to play you guys again in these garbage minutes and just let the starters finish it out, just shit like that. Because he's like, if you're going to go out there because we're up 30, teams are watching you. Other teams are watching you. You're hurting yourself and you're hurting the team. So interested to see which way he goes with all that. Maxi Kleber, 3 year, $33 million. I think it's a great signing. I think I really like his game, especially in their system. But a guy that can guard multiple positions, a great switch guy in on-ball screens that can go small ball lineups and have him guard, and has a three ball. So I think that's a really good bargain deal for him. Or for Dallas, $11 million a year for a guy like that. Probably could have got a little bit more if he went somewhere else and held out, but it's great they've kept him, right?
Huge for them. And for him, look, he's got 25 minutes a night. He knows his role. They need him. They need his toughness, his defense, his athleticism, his shot making. They need it. And for $11 million a year, it's a steal. Probably could have got 15 in the open market, maybe 13 to 15. But I think it's a perfect marriage for both sides. He knows what his role is, and he's happy with it. They could rely on him to give them that, like I said, that toughness and defense. And this is like where they value the development of young players for them. And he came up in their development program where, like, here's a guy that, was hurt most of his career. Casey Smith and Jeremy Holsop, all those guys got him right, physically. He improved his shooting. They got a good shooting coach there, Peter Patton, and they sort of did what they needed to do. Now they could sign him for cheaper than it would have been signing another guy in free agency. He's a great backup for, Dorian Finney-Smith. He could play some backup 5. He could even play some backup 3. And I love this signing for them. I think he's invaluable to that team, and he could play so many different roles. And I'm happy as hell for him. It's a great signing for him.
Yeah, and just a great cog. So people might look at it like, I don't even know what he averaged last
7
season.
and 5.
He's not a guy that's going to Yeah, 7-5. What are you guys talking about? But he's a valuable piece in their puzzle. Great locker room guy, good guy, can shoot the ball, can play multi positions. So great signing there. Lonzo Ball still has a knee issue, doubtful to be ready for the regular season. So this is something that's becoming more and more notable for Lonzo Ball. He's got that bad knee, so interested to see if he can get healthy. But that'll be. I think they were really good when he was in the lineup, especially defensively. They had, himself and Caruso and DeRozan and Levine, like really good athletic guards. And it was noticeable when he wasn't out there, in my opinion. I thought it was really good for Chicago when he was healthy, but you could tell something was not right there throughout the season. And now it looks like he won't be ready again, which hurts Chicago, Pro. I'd love to see them fully healthy. Yeah,
it's going to hurt them for sure. I mean, because he's such a good passer. He's not a flashy player. He's not like his brother. His brother's a lot different, more dynamic offensively, but he's got such great vision that allows Zach LaVine to be off the ball, DeRozan to be off the ball. He can get Patrick Williams the ball where he needs it, Vucevic where he needs it. And he's great when organizing the team. And I think that, it's a great compliment to have Dragic coming off the bench for him, Caruso coming off the bench as well. But like without him, now you got to start Dragic do, more minutes that probably Dragic was expecting with his older body, which, isn't great.
Or let's start Caruso, maybe.
Start Caruso, maybe, yeah, for sure. But Caruso's not really a great point guard. But you're right, maybe it gets it into him, gets rid of the ball, gets it back, maybe he can make open shots or straight line drive.
Limits the risk of Dragic, and his age as well. Like you said, that's a fair point. You don't want him playing 30, 35 minutes to start the season and then it does a hammy or a calf or something like that by Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, hopefully they can, get those guys right over there and, get Lonzo right, and maybe it'll take a couple more weeks or a month, hopefully not too much more, because I really do think that Chicago, they underachieved last year, but they had some injury issues. I think with a healthy Patrick Williams, if Ball can get right, Levine and DeRozan, obviously, and Vucevic, I think they got a decent second unit, but they need him for sure.
They got to take the next step. They got to take that next step now, because they had a decent year. They were better than most people thought. They fell off a little bit. They were dominating the first, third of the year, but they got to take that next step and get to a second round / maybe scratch and third round, which I don't think they'll get this season, but they got to get to the second round at least, in my opinion, to continue that growth of that young squad that they're putting together. I like them. They're an exciting team to watch. Luka Doncic suing his mum, Pro. What is going on there? To control his own trademark. So his mum has the IP rights to his trademark, I believe. Is it Luka Doncic 7 or whatever it is, something along those lines. But trouble in the family there. You hate to see this kind of stuff. You hate to see it played out publicly. Most NBA players, myself included, have issues with family from time to time that pop up throughout their careers. And you generally like that handled behind closed doors. Whenever it hits the media, it becomes much more messy. So that cannot be not be a good thing for his psyche. I believe he's very close, was very close to his mum, I believe, till now, and you hope this gets worked out quick. I just don't see how you come back from things like this once it goes in the public eye and family members are suing each other. It never really ends well. Yeah,
it's never pretty. I had no idea about it, to be honest. Even before, once you just mentioned it's the first time I've heard of it, and I have no idea about it, man. That's too bad. Hopefully the thing could get worked out. It's, family members' money. It's a lot of money, obviously, on his end. I have no idea what it entails. I wouldn't even, make believe that I did know. So hopefully it gets worked out and those guys, they put it behind them and sort of move forward, man. That's not pretty to read about.
Yeah, it sucks. You hate reading about it. So hopefully that all goes well and everyone comes to their senses there. Some people are killing Luka for it, I've read, saying that, how do you treat your mum like that? And some people are killing his mum, saying, how can you not give your son the trademark? So I guess it's in the eye of the beholder, but hopefully they can figure that out. Horace Grant, I think in financial trouble, bro. He sold his 3-peat rings. $297,000 he got for those 3. So you hope he's doing all right, but it's never a good sign when the championship ring is up for sale, Pro. That's usually the omen or the Grim Reaper knocking at your door, right, financially. So hopefully that can go towards, him not having to pay debts or bankruptcy notices or something like that. I hope. I don't know the context. Maybe he just didn't want to look at him anymore. Maybe he didn't like the Last Dance documentary. I mean, I don't know, because he won 3 in the early 90s. But you just hope that everything's all right there. It's just another story of an athlete in financial trouble, bro.
Bogues, it's never good to see, man. It's this money just, when you're playing, I don't know anything about it. You would know it, not me. But it's, you think it's going to last forever. It keeps flowing in. And then when you hit the wall of like, okay, you don't get those either max or high level contracts anymore, you start going from the 12 million a year to mid-level exception to, biannual exception to vet minimum. And you keep spending like you're making that top money, that money goes pretty quickly. There's not many players, especially in the 90s when they didn't make a lot of money. In comparison to today, it's not wealth. It's just they made money, and they just keep piling it on. That 30 for 30 broke was unbelievable with some of the scams that they get caught up in, some of the money they spend on, and they just don't really think about how to save it going forward. Vin Baker, a guy that I lived with when I was in Dallas, made, close to $100 million. And he had this house that was like, he was paying like $400,000 a month in mortgage. And I talked to his financial guy. I'm like, what the fuck? Bowling alley downstairs. Like, what are you doing? And they just don't understand that, look, live comfortable, a little bit above comfortable, obviously. You can have nice things, but at some point you got to put this stuff away. You got to plan for the future. You got to control spending. I don't know anything about his financials, Horace Grant, so I'm not going to.
He made $67 million in his career, bro. Back then.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Back then. That's $150 million today. When you factor inflation and all that bullshit. So, yeah, I mean, you hate to see it. You're right. I mean, I've seen guys spending and they just can't turn that tap off once they spend. And you want to enjoy it to an extent, but I always kind of had the mindset of like living decent in the NBA, but being able to save up and stay smart enough that when I retire, I can maintain kind of a decent lifestyle, right? Not crazy stuff, but like some guys that I see flying private and chartered jets on their own dime that are in the NBA right now. And look, some people might say, what's a big deal? But you do 10 or 15 of those a year, that's a couple of $1 million, right? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, you're only earning $5 million. You do the math, tax, 2 point, like what are you doing? I'm not great at maths, but that it doesn't fit into the puzzle. And that goes to your point, the newest car every year, all that kind of stuff. And family's the other one that we've spoken about at length as well. So you never want to, like, I don't value my ring like that. Like I love it. Don't get me wrong, but like, but I would never sell it, if that makes sense, right? Like I don't value it to an extent where like, oh, I look at it every day and look at this, it's so cool. It's a nice memory. I've got much more important things in my life than the ring, but I still wouldn't sell it. I know that, if it comes to a phase that I have to sell that, I've really screwed up, right? So, and I think that's for most pro athletes. Once that ring goes up, it can't be easy seeing that seeing yourself in the media and guys like us two assholes questioning whether you can eat your next meal,
No, I know. It's crazy. And, Tim Grover used to tell me when he was with MJ that a lot of his teammates that were making a lot less money than MJ would try to keep up with the Jordans, keep up, like if he came to practice a Ferrari the next day or the next week, player X would come with a Ferrari. And he'd be like, dude, what are you doing? You can't keep up with this. Like that. Like he's generational money. You're making this
his
money.
His own shoe brand.
Yeah. Like stop. And that's it with social media. And that's what's if you do any type of research with this stuff with kids, keeping up with the Jeffersons, they used to call it, with social media, and you're keeping up with people you go to school with or people you're friends with because they're taking a picture next to a Mercedes that doesn't even belong to them that they just saw.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's what kills me. I had this conversation today in the sauna at my gym, funny enough, bro. So you must have been listening in, but it's like people get jealous of these photos and lifestyles that they've rented the car for a fucking day, or they've seen it in the street, or they got a free holiday and look at me at the behind. Like, it's just like, oh man. And you feel bad for these young kids because they think I'm a loser because I'm sitting at home with my family, or I'm a loser because I'm in the house studying, right? It's like, no, that's not real. It's not real.
Elon Musk said that. I think he said, he was on like Joe Rogan or something. He was saying that that's a big part of our problem in today's society. Like, so many people lying on social media about how good their life is, and their life isn't really all that good. There are some that are, don't get me wrong, but then you got that normal kid that thinks really that they should be that happy. And, like you said, my life must suck because I don't have that. That's completely not true. And that these are deep-rooted issues with this social media, that it's so bullshit that I would say, with no study done, obviously, on my end, I would say 75% of the shit that we see on social media is fabricated. And at one point or another, I would say 90, to be honest. Yeah. And, like, even, like, I'm a huge Disney guy, and they got their Splash Mountain's arguably their top ride ever, right? Splash Mountain's, it's sort of based on this racist movie called Song in the South, that Disney put out in like the 50s or 60s. And it was about this guy, Uncle Remus, that had these, like, African-American dude, wasn't all that smart, had racial overtones, not like N-word or anything like that, don't get me wrong. But then he had these cartoon characters. I didn't really know anything about the movie. So I go on the ride, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to bring back a book or a stuffed animal or something for my daughter, because these characters that are in the ride, pretty cool. And the lady literally had to, like, bring me down this, like I tried to ask her, like, at the cash register. She brought me at the side and said, look, like, this is like a racist movie that, that, like, Disney's trying to, like, go under, put under, throw away. Like, you can't get the movie. Supposedly, like, a couple of people like bankrupted the movie. You can't get it anywhere. So now because of people finding out about this, Disney's changing the ride. It's going to be about some like frog princess or something like that. And, like, online the other day, I saw it on TikTok or something, like, oh, Disney's saving Splash Mountain. It's not going to go with this new thing. It's going to go there. Here's my blog post to read about it. They're about to have a big, like, conference about it. Like, most of the stuff that you read is bullshit. And I don't know why I put that, that out there with the Disney thing, but, like, most of the stuff that I scroll through, it's just like this guy with a Mercedes that that's not theirs. It's just, this vacation that this guy's not on, or this girl's not on, or, it's crazy, and it's killing.
And then, factoring it back to a basketball team, there is the competitiveness of trying to keep up with guys that you should have no business keeping up with, period. We'd see it with I see it a little bit when guys sign max contracts on a few of the teams I was on. You'd have guys that were on mid-levels trying to keep up with them, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, that's a net loss game. Like, dude, he's on 20, you're on 10, bro. Like, it's not gonna work out well for you. Like, and that's the competitiveness of athletes. They take it off. I've mentioned that before. They take it off the court. Like, my house is bigger than yours, or my girlfriend's better looking, or my wife's better looking, or my car's better. It's just you end up like Horace Grant selling 3 rings. All right, last thing with the American, I guess it's college. I didn't follow this too much, but South Carolina women's team has cancelled 2 games versus BYU Pro. There was some alleged racism between Duke and the BYU women's volleyball teams. They played in BYU, a women's volleyball game, a number of weeks ago now, early September. There were allegations of racism from the crowd. Full investigation was launched. As far as I believe, there was videos available to see. They were actually gone through to see people's mouths moving, what they were saying. They found absolutely no evidence of those comments made whatsoever. They actually interviewed people from in the crowd, I believe, Pro. And anyway, the investigation was, they said they were 100% sure that was not said. They threw someone out on the day too, mind you, and they apologised to them because they did not say that. Anyhow, a week later, South Carolina's women's coach has declined to play BYU because of these racist remarks, which we now most people led to believe that were false allegations. Is this going to continue with BYU? Should they just scrap all their home games? What is going on over there?
Bogues, I think that we all get riled up when we read about something and it's not true or we don't get all the facts. You and I have done it countless times, even on this podcast, where we would read a tweet or I'd be texting you oh shit, they really said this. And it was
what was the one at NBA Central with 2 L's?
Yeah.
That's got us twice.
Jeez. Fucking idiot. So when I read about the story and I was like, God, that sucks. That's not good for anybody. And Don Staley, the coach of South Carolina, is one of the most famous point guards ever to play in the WNBA, national champion, coach at Temple, South Carolina. A lot of social justice, a lot of, great leadership, all that stuff. She's big in the media a lot. I respect her as a coach and a player. And I think that what happened was, she got all caught up in it. And, I did a little bit too. I thought it was a little blatant, oh, wow. And what happened was then she says, well, we're going to cancel these 2 games. She plays them in a home and home this year, next year. And he said, I did my own research. And then when they started to investigate, like you said, videos, people's testimony, there's phones everywhere. There's people everywhere. Not one person said it. And then this girl, I think her name is Rachel Richards. She's got a godmother, Lisa Pamplin, who's going for circuit court judge in Fort Worth, tweeted about it. And she's big on, big race baiter. And I guess people have been looking into her. She said, my goddaughter is the only black starter for Duke's volleyball team. And every time she served, she was given a racist remark. My goddaughter's, she was threatened by a white male and told to watch her back going to the team bus. A police officer had to be put by the bench. Now, if you watch video of the match, she never looks back in the crowd. She never wow, this is ridiculous. As she's serving, she never really reacted to it. And then sort of said it after the fact. And then
she had a horrid game, I believe, too, right?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't even read into that. But I think what happened was Don Staley didn't want to go back on her deal. She's she's all about it. We're canceling these. It's not good for our girls. And then she didn't want to have to eat crow and be yeah, I messed up. I didn't get all the facts. My bad. I apologize. Let's just move forward. We'll play the games. But obviously I was trying to do what's best for my team. She's big on, I did my own research, talked to my own people, sort of reminded me of people who did their own research about the vaccines and stuff that people were killing for doing. And now she's doing her own research for this stuff. Probably a bad analogy, but still, I think she should just go back on it and be look, I didn't get all the intel. Obviously they did an investigation. There's no video. There's no, second gunman on the grassy knoll. There's nothing. There's not even smoke on this thing. There's just her word versus, with no evidence. Let's just go.
Yeah, and these days, if those words were said, I don't condone it, as I'm sure you don't. You do not condone those words. But these days, if someone mutters anything similar to what was alleged, you'd see people's jaws drop around the person that said it these days. You'd see people no, that's fucking wrong. Exactly. You'd see the pause in people's faces, and then you'd start seeing some sort of conflict. I'd like to believe you would. I think people aren't tolerating racial epithets and all that kind of stuff. When you make allegations like this, you do need some proof. You don't want to Jussie Smollett it, right? And I think that these kind of things that get thrown out with absolutely no proof hurt the cause. I think that, down the line when someone really does experience that and comes out and says, hey, I experienced this, it's going to be here we go again, another one. Is this true this time? And it diminishes the obviously the fight against those words never being used and people not, being racist to one another, sexist, XYZ, right? It's just disappointing that, I believe that investigation was pretty in depth. We know colleges are very into the inclusivity and equality, and probably go even over the top than they should with that stuff. They're not tolerating that. People will say, okay, BYU, predominantly white school, Mormon school, whatever. But, I'd hate to believe that it was just swept under the rug. So I believe the investigation, but like you said now, the double down from South Carolina about not playing is pretty disappointing, and it doesn't set a good precedent. So, I mean, I didn't know too much about the story till at least the basketball part of it. I heard about the volleyball part, but then you said, no, it's actually involved basketball now because teams won't play their basketball team. I'm like, yeah, and even so, look, devil's advocate, even if it did happen, someone did say that, you hope the school handles it right. But because of one idiot, you don't want to now punish a whole separate program. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think you punish the person at hand, and that's the way you move forward. But we'll also get tarnished with two white men discussing a racism issue, pro. So we don't want to go too in depth into it these days in 2022. We'll have people knocking on our door. But I think it's poor. I think it's poor by South Carolina. Very, very poor.
Yeah, and the precedent is if a fan says something to me, we just start canceling games now every time something's said, and.
I guarantee you something was said. I guarantee you she was being heckled. I can bet my life on that. From what I understand, she was having a stinker of a game and they were getting into her. But I don't, was that word used? Was those words used? I don't believe so. As per the investigation, you can only go by the witnesses and the people around it. Now, is this some big conspiracy where they got 1,000 people together and say, "Hey, we all need to give the same"? I highly doubt that. There's going to be someone, so. That sucks. But onto a lighter note, Eurobasket, pro. Have you followed any of this?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Man, some shock losses today, pro. Serbia have gone down. They're down and out. They are gone. They're packing their bags. So we're down to we were down to the final 16, which is now a knockout stage. Serbia were shocked by Italy, pro. 94-86. Jokic really Jokic really, the Italians, the pizza or the pasta or the actual people?
All of it. All of the pizza and pasta first, but yes.
Jokic was really the only shining light for Serbia throughout the tournament. He was dominant, but he had 32, 13, and 4. Italians shot the piss out of the wall from the three. Spessu, Meli, and Fontecchio, their big three combined to shoot 12 for 24 from three, 50%. So real good number there. But they definitely, and Serbia struggled with them over the last, even leading months coming into that tournament. So Italy kind of have their number. They move on. Greece defeat Czech Republic. That's pretty standard. Giannis 27, 10, and 5. He's the MVP of the tournament easily. He'll get the MVP in my opinion. Well, actually, Luka is the other one. But
did he give it a marketing?
Yeah, Markkanen scored. I'm going with Giannis. I think he's being fantastic. Sure. I think Luka's the other one competing. I think the difference for me is I think Slovenia are deeper than Greece. I think Slovenia's got probably a bit better roster than Greece do. Greece have their standard veterans, a good mix, but Giannis has been real dominant. 2 big threes in that game, pro, late. I'm not sure if you saw the highlights, but Czech were kind of within striking distance all throughout late in that game. He hit one with a couple of minutes left and then hit another one with 40 seconds left to put the game out of reach. So, and he was 2 for 8. He was 0 for 6 at that point, I believe. So he's still confident with his shot. France beat Turkey. This was actually a good game. I watched the kind of the end of the fourth and overtime. 87-86 beat him in overtime. Rudy was huge, pro. He had 2 or 3 key offensive rebounds both late in the fourth and overtime to get them over the line. Rudy finished with 20 and 17 rebounds in a FIBA game. He's very, very impressive. Turkey box out in this game, pro. They win. Simple as that. They just could not. Rudy, I think he dunked home the bucket to put it into overtime, mind you. So they needed to box out. Slovenia pummeled Belgium. Luka 35, 5 and 5, 88-72. Pretty easy win for Slovenia. Finland beat Croatia, as you just mentioned. Markkanen 43 and 9. Absolutely on fire. He was hitting step backs and side step backs, pulling up in transition, getting to the hoop and dunking on people, but they defeat Croatia 94-86. I think Zubac might have got hurt in that game too. He only played 2.5 minutes, so something's not right there. But it was a good battle. Bogdanovic was shooting it well for Croatia, but Finland too good there. Poland defeat Ukraine. 94-86. AJ Slaughter Pro from Louisville, Kentucky, Poland, with 24 points. So obviously a naturalized American. Germany defeat Montenegro. Schroeder's played well this tournament, Pro. I know we give him a lot of shit, and we still should because he left a lot of money on the table. But he had 22 points. I think he's been really good this tournament. Real steady force. Montenegro not a powerhouse. They beat them 85-79, but they advance. Spain defeats Lithuania. Now Lithuania are pretty stacked. So this was a pretty impressive win considering all the players that Spain have lost. They were led by Lorenzo Brown from Roswell, Georgia, Spain. There's another one.
Yeah,
Another joke. I'll use that again.
I remember.
He was really good. He had 28 points. Really, really good player. But they move on. So in the final 8, Pro, we've got Spain versus Finland, Germany versus Greece, France versus Italy, and Slovenia versus Poland. So kind of a strange top 8 there, Pro. A lot of teams at the start of the tournament you wouldn't really expect. But let's just, a few of the players. I know a few of the players. Let's just go outside our depth and pick the winners. So Spain versus Finland, Pro. Who you got?
Spain.
I'll go Spain as well. Although Markkanen is balling and they're a pretty decent team. But I think Spain
I would bet heavily on them if I'm picking Spain, but that's just me. But go ahead.
I think Spain just been there before. They know what it takes. It's not their first rodeo. Germany versus Greece.
Man. I'll go Greece.
Yeah, Greece. I'm going with Giannis. I'm on the Giannis train. I think Germany is solid, but I'm liking Greece. France versus Italy.
Oh, I'm gonna go with the Italians, even though they're probably not the greatest pick, but I'm gonna go with the Italians.
Yeah, I'm going with France. France are very hot and cold, though. They have patches where they look like the dream team, and they have patches where they look horrible, and they're fighting with each other. So they need to clean it up a little bit, but they are there. I go with France, and the last one, Slovenia v Poland. I'll take your pick because it's going to be Slovenia, as is mine. So our picks are pretty similar besides France and Italy, but it's been fun. I enjoy the Eurobasket, and I enjoy the FIBA World Cup and Olympics. They're good fun. One bad game and you're out. So I think you can watch it online for the Australians and Americans. There's a few websites you can Google that are live streaming the stuff for like $10 a month or some shit like that. So check that out. NBL preseason is kicked in. It's still pretty rough. It's even rougher than the NBA preseason at times because guys don't even have all their full rosters at the moment. So I don't take too much into it. I love seeing people, react to preseason games, Pro.
Sure.
This team's going to be awesome. Oh, that guy had 30. I'm like, it's a preseason. Pump the brakes. The lights aren't on. The lights aren't bright yet. There's no one in the crowd. Chill out. That moves me on to NBL expansion. Probably not a conversation for you, Pro, because you wouldn't be too aware, but we're currently a 10-league team. There is talks of expansion over the last couple of weeks. It's ramped up again. There has been 3 cities that have been noted: the Gold Coast, the Northern Territory, and Canberra. So I'd just like to ask the listeners, where would you like to see a team? Is it one of those 3? Is it a team that's your local? I know Newcastle's got a few fans out there that want to bring them back. As people are saying we shouldn't expand, people are saying we should. For me, Pro, I think this league, 12 is a sweet spot for me. I think by 2028, 2030, if we can have 12 teams in the league, that would be fantastic. I think more than that, you're starting to tread water a little bit because we're a small country, obviously, but I think 12 is a very nice number. Out of the 3 teams pitched, Gold Coast, Northern Territory, and Canberra, they all have their pros and cons. Gold Coast has been done before, hasn't survived. I think a little bit of a different circumstance now with the population boom since the last time that NBL team. The Northern Territory, Pro, top of Australia. They don't have a sporting team there, period, professional sporting team. They have a few football teams that play 1 or 2 games there a year as part of a tourism marketing / campaign. That would get a lot of government money, and that's why it's being looked at. People will say, well, why looking at the Northern Territory? I think the government will throw a lot of money, both state and federal, probably more state, probably not federal, but probably more state to get a team there. You'd have you'd be lucky to get 500 to 1,000 people there, I believe, in the crowd, but I don't think that's the underlying driver of why they're considering the Northern Territory. They also see it as a gateway to Asia. I'm not big on that. I think the Asian leagues hold their own weight. The Philippines and whatnot, they have a very good league over there. It's well supported. So I don't know if that works too well in the thinking. And then Canberra have had a team previously. It's the state capital here, our version of your Washington, D.C., where all the politics and stuff is done. They've seen a little population boom as well. And that one, I think, will have some government involvement as far as funding as well. So listeners, NBL fans, let me know what I've missed. Would you expand? Would you not? What's a good number for you? I'd love to know, just because I think it's a good conversation to have. The NBL doesn't want to go too big too quick, but I think needs to continue to grow. So just a little round out there, Pro, with trying to get a few more teams in the league.
Leagues are always trying to explore different ways to make money, man. And, expansion's a big way with expansion fees and team fees and, another slice of the pie. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of expansion, especially when you start getting that sweet spot and you start going over that sweet spot and you start watering down the whole talent pool. The NBA is talking about it, obviously, and it's tough, man. It's tough. It's taken them a while to sort of calibrate with the NBA. Even when Miami and Charlotte back in the day got in, and then, they got in Minnesota and Orlando, they were bad for a while. It took them a while. It's hard, man. But, leagues are never going to stop trying to grow. And as much as you want to try to stop it for the betterment of the league, there are too many people wanting to make money. The stakes and the money are too high. And they see that and they're tunnel vision towards it. And there's nothing that you can do about it.
Yeah, look, I think, I agree. You don't want to go too big too quick. I think 12 is a reasonable number for the next 10-year plan, in my opinion. I think beyond that, like you said, and look, there's a lot that goes into expansion. I'm not for, a team just popping up in a city and, we're going to build this. Like, I think you got to be integrated with the junior basketball community. You got to have powerful business people aligned with any pitch. It just can't be, leagues back 10 years ago that popped up and then didn't survive, were just mom and pop investors, essentially, right? Like you, me, 5 other guys, we all put in 400,000 here, 400,000 there. We pull up, and don't forget that just buys you a license. Then you need running costs, and you're going to have a loss for the first 4, 5, 6, 7 years potentially, right? So the issue usually that arises with these teams, Pro, at least in Australia, is they buy their license. First couple of years, the honeymoon period, everyone's excited, and then year 3, year 4, go, hey, we've lost 800 this year. Everyone needs to chip in another 200, and it gets to a point where guys are like, I don't want to chip in out of my pocket anymore. I can't afford this, or their business kind of starts to struggle away from the basketball, and then the first thing they cut off their books is what? The sport investment. So you want people that can sustain losses, that can sustain, potentially a loss with the club, that can move it as a tax credit to other businesses in their portfolio, blah, 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 blah. So, and the NBL's done a much better job of that, having those kind of people involved, and I think that's what is the underlying factor for popping up with a new license in new cities. The mom and pop dream, unfortunately, as majority owners, is gone. You just can't do it. You got to have some big, powerful business people involved to launch a new club. All right, documentaries. Did you watch any of these, Pro?
Both, yeah.
You watched them both. Beautiful. You did some homework, Pro. Listeners going to be happy. But I watched 2 documentaries over the last couple of weeks that I want to talk about. And I told Pro to watch them because they were good. I'd love to hear your thoughts in a second. But the first one, it's an Untold series on Netflix. For those of you who aren't familiar, they did 2. They did basketball related, Rise and Fall of AND1, the AND1 brand, and the other one was Operation Flagrant Foul, which was Tim Donaghy's story. So we'll touch on the AND1, Rise and Fall of AND1. Now, look, I wasn't huge into the street ball portion of the AND1 stuff when they were doing the tours. I wasn't an avid watcher of that, but I was a fan of the brand. I remember having the T-shirt. I think it was in 95 or 94 or 95 or 96. I had one of the AND1 original OG T-shirts that had the funny sayings on them, like, I'm going to take this trophy and then your girlfriend, like all these kind of funny monikers they had on T-shirts with like the big muscle man. And I was always a fan then, and then followed AND1, followed the progress. I remember the first mixtape came out here in Australia finally, and we were all trying to copy the moves, like trying to, fake throw the ball behind people's heads and make them spin around, and the crossovers and all that kind of stuff. It was huge here as it was in America. And then when I went to the AIS, we got an AND1 sponsorship. So they supplied all our shoes, so we were in AND1. So I had a real close tie to AND1. I really love the brand. And then obviously the street ball kind of circuit on ESPN they used to televise came later. I wasn't an avid follower of that. I still love NBA pure basketball, but I did love the M1 brand. It was different. But the documentary was interesting. It was, they took over the world for a bit basketball-wise, and so much so that in the documentary they mentioned that Nike was alert, Nike was aware of him, and Nike came out with that famous commercial with was it Jason Williams and a few other guys of the squeaky shoe song with the squeaky shoe and the bouncers, and it's just a shame it ended the way it did. Greed, essentially, that's what ended it, Pro. I don't know if you agree, but the players were paid just as regular employees. Some were paid 20, 30 grand a year. Some were paid 100. They started infighting in a locker room about their salaries. Why are you getting paid this much? Why are you getting paid this much? And they brought in the professor. So I won't ruin it for everyone watching, but I think it's a great story about how a brand just probably got too big for its capabilities and for its resources. Like they got way too big, and they needed another 100 employees to facilitate how big they'd grown to. And it ended up obviously it's still around. I think conglomerates bought them out. I think there's a conglomerate that bought and won Fila, Champion. They're all under the same umbrella now, I believe, made out of the same warehouse. They just chuck a different stamp on it. But did you enjoy it? I mean, I don't know if you were a fan of AM1 back in the day, or if you wore the old Tai Chis when you were in your younger days, Pro. But good documentary.
Bogues, it was really good, really interesting how they started it and the people involved. Just watching, it's funny. Like I remember seeing it. I remember seeing the professor and those guys in the show they had. I didn't really watch it a lot, but I would if it was on, I would watch it a little bit. I was with the Celtics at the time. I remember the professor entering the draft. He was at a JUCO in Seattle or Portland, and he forwent his eligibility to go to the draft. Anyways, I was this street ball stuff. I used to read about street ball a lot in New York. A lot of books written about it. Heaven is a Playground was one of them. It's the City Game, blah, blah, blah. But then I went to Jordan Camp. And Jordan Camp in Santa Barbara was a bunch of rich kids that basically millionaires' sons, actors' sons, athletes' sons. And on their breaks at the dorms, there'd be a bunch of these kids in a circle. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm watching these rich kids that, couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie. And they were trying to go at each other and go one-on-one. And it was a circle. And one guy had to dribble it between the other guy's legs and go to the other side of the gauntlet, basically. And
so no basket.
Yeah. And I'm asking, with no basket, just doing the dribble moves. And I'm what the, and I asked the kid, I'm what's going on? Oh, this is the and one stuff. This is what they play in the crowd and this is what we want to do. And I was wow. And it had a huge part of it. And look, it's like anything else, Bogues. It was a big thing for a while. They captured lightning in a bottle. And the players, yeah, they were underpaid, but come on. I mean, players are thinking they're dicked over in every sport for years. All they had to do, look, they signed those deals, regardless of how good or bad. You signed the deal. Hey, look, I didn't like my deal in Dallas, my first deal. I thought it was highway robbery, but I signed the deal. And I'm I can't be mad. I signed the deal. They gave it to me. That's it. Yep. So what are you going to do, right? So instead of going to them, and look, they're street ball guys. A lot of them didn't play or go to college. A lot of them are just hustlers. They didn't know how to negotiate. It was all about, hustling, right? If they went to them and been hey, look, we want this. I think we deserve this and come to some type of an agreement, maybe. But again, it's everybody's side, just like the Donaghy thing. Everybody has a side in this. I don't think we got the full truth in anyone's side. I think we got portions of it. And it's what are you going to do? It was a great thing for a while. It just, they didn't have enough behind it. Like you said, they needed more people. They needed, to play. I think people just like the Globetrotters, they get a little sick of it. And the Globetrotters lasted a lot longer than them. But people loved it, filled out arenas. But then you could see it when they were in the show and they were going, they're not in Madison Square Garden or, Utah Jazz's facility anymore. They're in junior colleges and D1 schools and D2 schools and high school gyms. And I'm okay, now you could see it's the whole shine is sort of running out on the thing a little bit, and people are getting a little bit, okay, we've seen this. What else you got? And I think that the players just couldn't handle it. The management couldn't handle it. there was infighting in the management. Oh, I'll save it for the people who want to watch it, but it's just one of those things, Bogues.
They were rock stars though. They
were.
You know, there was 3 or 4 years there where they were getting more fans than some NBA arenas in their own arena. They were going like Toronto. They were selling out more than the Raptors did back then. You know, so yeah, I mean the negotiating tactic of throwing something at the
throwing a pizza at a girl, for God's sakes. I mean, come on, man.
yeah.
Who the fuck
It's not going to work. Not going to work well.
Although the pizza didn't look all that good, so maybe you might want to throw it against the wall. Don't throw it at a girl. Come on, man. That's
and I think they would have, if they would have just went and said, "Look, we signed on a couple of years ago when this wasn't as big. We're not entitled to, but we'd like to up our salaries a little bit, seeing how much it's blown up." I think those guys would have done it. I think.
Agreed.
Business sense. The last thing you want to do is have a strike within your own little product or brand. And I think the other mistake was that it all came down to one guy. One guy was basically the whole development arm and did everything himself, and he was a bit of an OCD and had to do everything. And, he obviously couldn't handle it health-wise, and bye-bye brand, which was, it's a great documentary though. I recommend go see that one. And the other one is Operation Flagrant Foul, Tim Donaghy.
That guy would have been a perfect analytics guy, by the way. The guy at N1.
100%.
The guy that was a nut. Yeah.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah, he was. Yeah. So he was really good. But the Tim Donaghy, we get a lot more insight from him in this. I think he's done a podcast as well. But it was interesting. It was interesting to see. I mean, he claims that he never bet on his own games. That he was forced into it. The best is, what was it? I made 50 grand out of all this, wasn't it, Pro? Was it the number? Somewhere around there?
No, I think it was a little more than that. I think it was like 65 to 80 games.
That's what I mean. It was under 100K. Under
like
100K.
$2,000 a game. Remember they were paying him $2,000 a game? I think it was like 100, maybe 140. I forgot what they said, but it was six figures over like 2 years.
That's what I'm saying. Surely, I got a friend that always says, if you got to do something illegal, you better be getting a payday.
No doubt.
If you got to do something that's risking jail, I'm not doing it for 100 grand. Sorry, if you 5-10 million, come talk to me. But that's why there's people led to believe that he's got money buried. He had money buried somewhere or something else going on. But it is interesting to see his point of view. He tries to play a little bit more of an angel compared to kind of strong arming to doing it. He was scared of the mafia ties that he'd connected, that they were going to hurt him, blah, blah, blah. Probably some truth to that to an extent. They actually have the mafia guy in there. He says, that's bullshit, I'd never do that, blah, 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 blah. The one key quote, I don't know if you picked this up, was the FBI agent that they got on. They got the retired FBI agent that was involved in the case. The David Stern comment. David Stern tried to hire the FBI agent investigating the case on behalf of the American people to say that, hey, the NBA is crooked. David Stern basically threw an off-cuff remark at the end of one of the interviews, like, hey, we could really use a guy like you in the NBA. And my ears perked up. I'm like, holy shit. So you can imagine how many times that worked for David Stern and possibly Adam Silver, right? And do you think watching that there were other referees involved?
I definitely think there were other referees involved in this for sure. I definitely, in my opinion, I think there was way more than one.
I agree.
Totally
agree.
I could be wrong. And for the record, I don't believe anybody on that show. I think there was a percentage of the truth told with all of them, but I think they were all fabricating their stories and they were all
protecting themselves, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But there were some little slips. There were some little. Sure. What was the slip that Donaghy had towards the end of the documentary? There was a little slip that he didn't even know he said.
I forgot, but yeah,
can't even remember. It was something along the lines, and you just. I think there were other officials involved. I think they're probably potentially still refereeing today, because I guess these guys. Just look at the phone records of Tim Donaghy and how many calls he had to a certain official who's still in the NBA and one of the best officials as far as playoffs and finals, and a good friend of Chris Paul, Pro. That official, they were talking on a daily basis for. Every day for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes in the morning, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes in the afternoon, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes at night, post game. and look, you can be good friends. And I've been friends with some great teammates, but I'm not going to see you the next day. There's nothing I need to call you about 4 times in a day, man. I'm sorry. So that smells to me a little bit. There's something. I think there's other. I think there is other officials involved. I think there was some rumors that everyone go out there and watch it. It's a good one, but rumors that the NBA had done some things on the side to quash the investigation. I believe that. They're a powerful entity. They have direct access to government officials. They have so it is an interesting one. It is an interesting one. You got to kind of piece together the truth from that one, do the podcast, do the pro Donaghy stuff, do the anti Donaghy stuff, and then kind of make your own assumption about what's going on. But as far as 2 basketball documentaries, if you've got some spare time at night and you put the kids down, I recommend watching both of them. I think they were both highly entertaining as far as being a basketball aficionado, bro.
Yeah, I think they were both great. The N1 stuff, if you're a basketball fan of the 90s and early 2000s, you'd definitely get a kick out of that. And the Donaghy stuff, there was a podcast a couple of years ago about Donaghy, and that was basically, this is the video version of that podcast. I mean, just because it's basically the same things talked about, but it was great. I thought it was excellent. Well done. But again, it's just, they're all characters involved. Look, referees had a big thing in like the 80s, Bogues, where the NBA would give those guys first class tickets. And what they would do is they would cash in the first class tickets, get coach seats, and then take the money and keep the money and and didn't file it on taxes. And there was like half the league was doing it. So with this, I think with something like this, because Donaghy wasn't a guy, probably kept his mouth shut, especially with, hey, I'm making this money, you might want to try it, and just either bet on these games yourself or find somebody who's backing your bets or whatever, or you could just give information to. I don't know. I don't care. It's just entertaining stuff to me. And look, there's just so much money at stake with the NBA and their TV contracts and things that they couldn't have this thing come out if it was true. So, if I had billions of dollars on the line over a 7 or 8 year period, I'd probably be into some tomfuckery too, to be honest.
And I found that quote. So at the end of the documentary, there had been doubts as to whether Tim Donaghy had made much more money through the refereeing scam that he had claimed to the authorities. The Untold documentary team now asks him the same question. Tim blankly replies, "I don't know," when he's asked the question for the first time about, did you make more money than you say you did? I don't know. And then he's asked the same question towards the end of the documentary to reiterate what he said, and he said, absolutely not. I did not make more money. That was an interesting part of that documentary. I hope I didn't ruin it for anyone, but there's people that are led to believe that he has made more money than he said he did, and it was somewhere, and he's bounced back. I think he's a realtor or something down in Florida, living in a nice house right now. Obviously divorced from his wife and family too, which sucks, but definite downfall there. All right, real quick, we'll do a couple of stats and fact or fake news and get out of here. I'm going to quiz you, pro. Who had the most transition points in the NBA last season?
Player or team?
Team.
Golden State?
No. The Memphis Grizzlies, 24.8 points. Second?
Golden State?
No, I'm going to give you a tip. They're not in the top 4. Hornets were second at 24.5.
Oh, shit.
Third were the Bucks at 24.1. And fourth were the Lakers at 23.5. So I don't know. Between the Hornets and the Lakers, they weren't too successful last season. They're in the top 4, so I don't think transition points relate too much to winning. The Bucks are in there in third, but just an interesting one. I didn't realize the Grizzlies were that. I knew they were fast paced, but I thought Hornets at least would have them pipped, and the Bucks obviously play a fast pace with Giannis leading the break half the time. So there's an interesting one. Useful or useless, pro?
I would say pretty useless, to be honest. It's interesting, but useless nonetheless. I think playing faster, playing slow, playing faster. Anything. Yeah. I think if you have good players, you're going to win games. I think you can, try to stay in games or be competitive by running. But I think if you have good players, really good players, you're going to win games. And I think that there's no formula on how to play to win games in the NBA and get to that championship level. I think it's useless. to be honest. Interesting, but useless.
I would agree. Last quiz, I've only got two today. This is a player who's top 10 all time in points, rebounds, and blocks. Who would you think that is, Pro? Top 10 in all three of those.
I'll probably guess Olajuwon.
No. In fact, he's top 3 in all three, Pro. That's the kicker. He's top 3 in all three of those categories. That should give it away. Points, rebounds, and blocks.
Kareem?
There you go. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Didn't realize that. Top 3 in 3 categories, man. That's beyond impressive. He's probably going to lose the all-time scoring champ to LeBron, but still top 3 in 3 categories is fantastic for the old Kareem. So, fact or fake news, what do you have?
All right, Bogues. Let me see. The tournament, the in-season tournament will be a big success off the bat. Fact or fake news?
Fake news. I think if it is a success, it's going to need to take some tradition and some time and some people. Half people aren't even going to be aware of it early on. What the hell's going on? Why they play? Why is there a finals game in November? I would guarantee that. So I think fake news. If it is deemed to be successful, it's going to take 4 or 5 years for it to get its legs and become a every season thing that people actually care about. But I'm even fake news on the long term impact of it. But definitely success off the bat, fake news.
Yeah, I say it's fake news. I think they're just going to be normal games. I think that's how they bill it as. Like I said, the only way that I think you can get big viewership if there was like some $50 million prize for it, and team splits it. But, obviously they're not going to do that. But just to have some type of a prize in in-season tournament, I don't think there's going to be a big uptick. I think people will think it's a little bit cool, here and there, but I don't think these cup games that people are going to care. There's not going to be more people coming because they're cup games in November. And the championship game, whatever, like you might get a little bit of an uptick because people might want to see what it is, but I don't think it's going to be a big success off the bat. I say it's fake news. Montrezl Harrell signing in Philly. That signing puts the Sixers over the edge to get to the conference finals. Fact or fake news?
I'll go fake news just because, they got him for cheap, by the way. $5.2 million over 2 years. Obviously some issues off the court, but I don't know. My whole thing is he's going to come off the bench. He's probably going to play a little bit with Harden, and Maxi's not really a great, distributing pick and roll type, get 10 assists, drop it off to Harrell, get him easy dunks. Harden a little bit better, much better at that, obviously, out of the pick and roll, but Harden loves to go ISO. So I think they can use the energy boost to an extent, but can you play Embiid and Harrell together? I don't know. I think PJ Tucker is going to eat up most of those minutes at the 4 for the most part, just because of the 3 ball next to Joel to give him space. So that I don't know if that leaves you with a lot of minutes for Harrell to make that much of an impact. I think he's going to get 10 or 15, but I think they're going as far as Embiid, Harden, and Maxey take him. And I think Tucker's going to eat up most of those 4 minutes. I don't even think he's going to play huge minutes. I don't think he's going to get 20, 25 minutes like he was the last couple of campaigns of these other teams. So I don't think it makes that huge of a difference. It shores up their bench a little bit. I think it'll help them in a regular season. 5-game road trip, we need some energy. Harrell's that guy. But come playoff time, I don't think it puts them over the edge. I think it puts them where they are. They're going to be a competitive team in the East, and they should be top 4.
Yeah, I don't see them doing it. I say it's fake news. I don't see them really making a big splash with this. I think their scoring on the second unit's not very good. I think that he gives you a few games where he could really help you, give you some energy, rebound, give you some scoring, but I just don't think they have enough scoring off the bench. It's like him. It's just not like they don't really like Daniel House, him. They don't really have that, that team that they could really score with, like Thibault, House, Yang, Montrez. Like, I think it gets them a little bit better when you're getting them on the cheap like that. But I don't think I think it's a 1+1. They signed him. I think it's a player option year 2, and I don't think it gets them over the edge. I think they're a little older too. Like, you got to watch out for Harden at 33, Tucker 37. You got to watch out for Embiid with sort of, I think if Embiid wants a night off, on back to back, Montrez is good to throw in there. But
totally agree. I think in the regular season, but overall, is he the determining factor that's going to get him past a Milwaukee or a Miami? No.
And to be honest, like I'm not a huge fan of Paul Reed, but Paul Reed showed some development a little bit last year.
Last season. Yeah, I agree.
I would have now this stumps his growth because now he's definitely not going to play when Montrez is there. So to me, I would have played Reed and say the hell with it. Look, this team's going to get broken up. If they don't win, it's going to be a Brooklyn situation, in my opinion. Maybe not on Embiid's part, but maybe on somebody else, like a Harden or someone like that. So I think that, like, I don't know. I would have probably just let Reed play, see what he got, But I don't think it brings him over the edge. I think it's fake news. All right, Bogues, last one. Somebody signs Bridges from Charlotte, for this season at some point.
Somebody as in not a correctional facility?
Not a correctional facility, no. That's a good one, by the way. You think somebody takes
I think
chance?
Someone signs him if he's not in jail. The rundown of what he 3 felony charges, like, if one of them sticks, he's in some trouble, right? Look, if he's proven innocent on all 3 counts, and walks out of court, yes, I think someone does sign him. Did he cost himself a shitload of money? Yes, I think someone will eventually sign him. Look, at the end of the day, there's always going to be a team that gives you a second chance. It might not be straight away. Maybe it's in January. Maybe it's at deadline. He'll get another chance. I would even argue that even if he does get a small stint in jail, he will get a second chance. So I think fact, but obviously we don't know when that's going to be. That would be what I can't answer. Whether he gets jail time, whether he misses a season, I think that would be the interesting one. Whether he misses a whole season and a half because he has to go to jail or whatever. Does he then get picked up? That's probably that's probably where you lean in on 50-50. But I think his talent and his basketball ability doesn't need to be questioned if you can separate that from off court. And there will be a team that does that. There will be a team that, whether it's at deadline, whether it's whenever, that would welcome a player of his talent and just have to block their ears out for all the bad pub they're going to get for about a week and then get on with life. That's everyone deserves a second chance. If what he's alleged to have done is true, is despicable. I'm not a life ban guy for that kind of stuff, but I'm also that there needs to be a lot of things needed to be fixed before you probably should be eligible to play basketball again, right? And that probably starts with his own personal well-being and growth and getting better as a person. So it will be interesting. I think there is definitely teams that would, you look at someone like Sacramento or something that could use him on the basketball court, of course. Won't help the cultural woes, but I think if he doesn't get jail time, someone's picking him up, bro.
Yeah, I think the right thing to do is not have him play all year. Charlotte's not going to offer him anything, in my opinion.
Even if he's proven innocent, bro.
Well, no. I think if he's proven innocent, I'd say take a year off.
Well, not proven innocent. He's obviously not charged. They say, yeah.
I think a team signs him regardless, even if he gets out of jail in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. Somebody will sign him. Second chance, rehabilitation, mental health, all that. Somebody will sign him, and not right now. No one's touching that. It's tough. Like we talked about the Anthony Edwards thing about what he said with those guys, and that's going to be probably something on talked about in the next few days. This is much worse, obviously, but I think there's got to be a precedent set. Like if you have anything like this, striking women, I think it's got to be
and child. Yep.
And child. And child. I thought it was just in front of the child. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
No, I think one of the charges is the child as well. I think. Yeah.
I think you got to be harsh with this. I would give him at least a year, if not 2, and then there will be a team, multiple teams offering him something, to rehab him and go forward with it. But I think it's fake news. I don't see anyone signing him right now or before the court case, especially with the Deshaun Watson thing, the way that's going in football in the NFL. I don't think you're even going to touch this until the court case is done and you figure out what's going to go, what he's going to do in the next couple of years.
Yeah, well, it says the release noted that the children were present for the alleged assault, but did not otherwise specify what the child abuse counts stemmed from. So
Right.
there is a felony count for that. Maybe you can get the KCP deal, pro.
With the playing with the ankle bracelet.
I was there for that, bro. I was there. I was in LA.
That was real? I thought somebody just superimposed that.
No, he didn't. The ankle bracelet was fake, but
Okay.
it was the craziest shit. So he gets a 25-day jail sentence that allowed him to leave on a work release for home games and practices. So
It's unbelievable, man.
I couldn't. It was the craziest shit I've ever seen. It was what was it for? It was driving under the influence, and then I think he bombed a court date or something in a different state. I can't remember. Anyway, but I remember we had a brand new facility at that time in LA. They just built that brand new facility, and he would basically come first thing in the morning at like 8 a.m. for 11 o'clock and just have his free time. And then after practice, he wouldn't leave that place till like 5. But the fact they let him play in games and come to practice was fucking hilarious. Like he said the jail cell was fine because he had a PlayStation in there, and I mean, if you're a celebrity in LA and you go to jail, I mean that's
dude.
I guess
it ain't like he's gonna get. It ain't like he's gonna get shanked and on the team bus has a mirror to see what's going on behind him. I mean, come on, the guy. You know,
that was hilarious though. Only in America, man. I was like, wait, hold on, where are you going after this? He goes, I gotta go back to jail. I was like, well, how's that jail if you can leave for work? Like, it makes no sense. He's like, man, it's a good deal, huh? It's a good deal. I'm like, it is a fucking good deal, man. But only in America. So maybe I doubt Bridges gets one of those. But I think if he's going in, he's going in for a while. And just he hadn't signed his deal yet, right? He was about to sign a 90 million, wasn't he? 100 million.
Yeah, he was going to sign a max or close to it, and
jeez.
And then that happened. Imagine the timing of that happening. It's crazy.
Imagine being his agent. Imagine being his agent getting that call.
Yeah.
You'd just be like, okay, there goes. What is it? 3% of 100 million.
And then the 200, and then the 300 grand I had to give this guy to get him as a client. Now that's down the tubes too. Fuck.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine about it. A friend of mine's that listens to this podcast is like, he said, what is his agent doing? How do you allow him to do that? I'm like, man, it is like the guy does what guys do what they want to do, and I'm from the mindset of like, if I'm going into a contract extension negotiation or a free agency negotiation, I'm the agent. I'm like, dude, I'm locking you in a house in the Hamptons, or I'm going to get you a nice place somewhere. I'm locking, especially if you know it's a guy that's kind of a little bit loose. And he had a few issues leading into that that arrest, right? Like with the drinking lean or whatever the fuck it was. You almost need to lock for their own good. Like I'm locking. I'm going to get you a trainer, and you're to stay here until you that ink is on the paper. Stay out of the nightclubs, stay out of the streets, stay out of this. You're not traveling. You're going to work out with your trainer. You're going to sign it. As soon as you sign it, go and do what you want. But
dude,
yeah, it's
nobody's teaching these guys how to be pros, man. Nobody. Like the agent's too worried about signing the next client. They just want to sign them, and then right away they just sign them. Looking for the next guy. You got to sit these kids down. Forget about telling them how to spend their money at the strip club and all this other bullshit. You got to give them practical advice about how to be a pro in the NBA. Like how to show up early, how to put your work in, how to talk to people, how to look people in the eye, how to, don't get in trouble. All this stuff reflects badly on you. There's so much money to be made. Before, like when you got in the league, look, there was a lot of money when you got in the league, but a lot of players weren't making it like that. Now you get guys 14th on the roster, 13th on the roster, making like $7 million a year. And like, it's almost not generational money, but it's a shitload of money. You get guys who barely in rotations, and they're going to make over $100 million in their career. That's absurd back 15, 20 years ago. But you got all this in front of you. Learn how to just be a pro. Learn how to say no. Learn how to I really want to punch my girlfriend in the face, but A, it's morally wrong. That's number one. And number two, it's like, I'm literally going to destroy any chance that I have of making anything of myself after this punch lands. Like, what are you doing? Who's teaching you these things? And that's why I don't think there's much good leadership in players, coaches, organizations, agents. There aren't many. There are a few, but not many. And it's really destroying the fabric of the game. And it's destroying these players. And it's crazy. And look, I'm not blaming anybody but Bridges. I mean, that's fucking pathetic. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is completely fucking pathetic to strike a female unless she has a weapon and is going to strike you. To strike a woman is deplorable. But, like, you gotta learn that that's not going to be good for you. Come on now,
Just leave. Anyways. Just walk out.
Yeah. Fucking leave.
If you think that you're susceptible to that, I mean, we had some of this, I would say, the seminar training type stuff, and we had, when you're in professional sports, NBA teams, they have all kinds of speakers come and try to help you, and we used to have a police officer come and talk to us about, because each state has kind of different domestic violence laws too, which is crazy, right? Like some of them like, you get booted out of your house, the woman gets to stay, even if they don't know who was at fault. Like there's different laws in different states. So the team used to bring out someone and just tell you like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. And this old school cop, right? He's like, what I tell everyone is have a bag packed in the garage at all times. So everyone's like, what? And he's like, I have a bag packed in the garage at all times. I'm married, but you never know. I could get in a heated argument with my wife. She could say something, I could say something. And if I think something's going to happen, I grab my bag and I put it in the car and I come back the next day. And I'm just like, it's a fair point. Like, let off steam. It sounds stupid, but you never want to be in a situation where, you're getting a little back and forth, and we all know how that ends. Even if the female pushes you, you push back, you're much stronger. It's just not going to end well for anyone. So, and look at Bridges now. Like, hypothetically, he could be a minimum / mid-level ceiling guy now for the rest of his career, just because of this stain on him. And I would even argue, even if he gets proven innocent and all this, which I don't think he will, it's still a pretty big blight. 3 felony counts, like people are gonna be like, and then on top of that, like I said, he had a couple of indiscretions leading into that in an off season where you're a fucking free agent. Like,
well, you'll get a 1+. In my opinion, you'll get a 1+1
team option.
Maybe team or maybe player. Like,
but
real
beyond that,
money.
let's say he comes back, he goes jail for a year, comes back, has a couple of years on the minimum. Even beyond that, maybe his ceiling, if he balls out, is not. I don't think anyone's giving him max, even if he balls out, or even close to that. Beyond
I don't know,
that,
Bogues. Probably not. I think you got something there. Probably not. But like, if they do something, and this guy, look, it'll be really a lot of negativity towards him and the team that signs him. But if that guy stays out of trouble, I think
he's a good player. He's a fucking good player. He's a great player.
Everybody loves to copy LeBron. The one thing you should copy about LeBron, you can like him, not like him. Dude, when's he ever gotten in trouble? When has he ever gotten arrested? When has he ever domestic violence? When has he ever, never. Like, he's not confrontational like that. Look, like I said, I don't agree with everything he does. I'm not a huge fan of him, just sort of how he goes about things. But I never denounce his talent, and I never denounce the fact that he's never gotten in trouble. And he's got a lot to lose. And, somebody, whoever it was, got it in his head quick that, dude, you just got to chill. You're going to make all this money. You're going to be one of the best players of all time. You just got to chill. And, that's the problem. But it's a joke, Bogues, of these fucking NBA meetings where the players, come and talk to you, right? Not all of them. Most of them are bad.
You mean retired players, yeah?
Yeah, you got to take care of your money. I'm like, bro, you bought a $20 million water park in Alaska. Shut the fuck up. Who are you? Who are you going to talk to us about fucking finances? Give me a fucking break.
No, but the best is it's usually no offense to the guys they bring in to talk to you are guys that went have been bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, come on, dude. Don't talk.
I was bankrupt once, but don't be like me. And you're like, why are you here telling us how to?
Why are you here, dude? I mean, seriously.
You got the one dude that was a drug. There was one guy that was a drug addict, and he used to tell you about I used to snort this and I used to do this, and just sitting there what the hell is going on? What am I sitting in?
Dude, You can make so much money, Bogues, to work in the NBA front office or an NBA team's front office by just being a pro and learning how to speak well and like talk about the right shit. Go into a players meeting when the league sends you to a spot and talk to them about the real, like for the young guys, like really what it takes to be a pro and not about, because players want to be cool. They want everybody to like them. So they talk about nonsense, talk about real shit. And teams are like, dude, 0.2% are people that and the players that played in this league actually talk about real good shit. They talk about nonsense when they're in the public eye talking about this stuff. And we can't really trust them around our players. Like, if you learn how to do that, you'll make $250 a year minimum. And then just fucking go forward with that. And to go back on your point with Iguodala, if I was Golden State right now, I'd sign him to a long-term deal and be like the Michael Finley of Golden State, where Michael Finley's right next to Cuban. He's like big time in the front office, talks to players, like ingrained in that organization. I think Iguodala should do that. Like I
think he will. I think they'll have him. If I'm a gambling man, I'd say that he's got a role etched out for him in that organization post-retirement. It's a matter of if he wants to do it. I know he's an avid golfer. He's involved a lot in the startup industry and tech and all that kind of stuff. So it's whether he wants to do it. But I think a la a Sean Livingston type deal where he's still got a connection to the front office. He's still there on the day-to-day, but he still has freedom to go and play golf,
He should Google Kevin McHale walking and Dirk Nowitzki walking and see in the last couple of years and see them walking and what happened to them playing a little bit longer than they should have. Dude, it ain't worth it. Just work in the organization. You could still be in with the team. You could still travel with the team if you want to. You could still be ingrained in it, and you don't have to put he's made enough money. He's made enough connections. He's won enough championships.
Yeah, it's probably just more the itch. It's the itch.
Sure.
Even for myself, post-retirement, there are days you wake up with that itch. We're like, oh man, I miss playing. I miss the competitiveness. I miss the travel, bonding with the guys, talking shit on a bus. But my brain was smart enough to then relay back on remember the other 6 days a week when you couldn't walk, or the other 5 days a week where you're popping anti-inflammatories or you can't play with your kids. So that's the problem. And I think if he still has that itch, I assume he'll go on. But I think he definitely understands that the longer you play, the more of a detrimental impact it can have to your long-term health. And he's a pretty fit guy. Like his body fat's still at this point probably lower than most guys in their 20s. So he's a guy that works out a fair bit. But I think they'll keep him around if I'm a betting man. But let's wrap this up. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Let me know your thoughts about the questions I had for you listeners around the NBL expansion and a few other things. And if you were a GM, would you hire a vet min guy, and who would be your guy? I'd love to hear some tweets or posts on Facebook or Instagram. Let us know your thoughts, and we will see you all next week.
Don't say Bogues, okay? Don't kiss Bogues' ass and say, Bogues, you should be the one signed. Give him somebody else. Like, who's your vet min guy? Don't kiss Bogues' ass.
Delly's going to get a spot in Sacramento because he's a vet min true pro. He's going to take Sacramento from 11th to 10th, they're going to move up. They're going to move up. They're going to get into the play-in because of professionalism and get that shit show there in Sacramento back on track.
Yeah, right.
Later, Pro.
Later, Bogues.
By Andrew Bogut.
Let's get Rogue.